Hello and welcome. I'm actually really excited about this episode of the Sovereign Society podcast because the Sovereign Society podcast has hit the road.
Here you are in Phoenix.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and this is like the furthest I've gone to record a podcast. Like living in Joshua Tree, I go a lot to LA or whatever, but I'm on my way to the Tucson Gem Fair, and I was like, oh, well, I have to hit the sister up who we've been like Instagram following each other for like years. So I've got Zoey Greco here, aka the Merhipsy, and it's just really fun being in her sacred home because from one desert chick to another, it's like the aesthetics are like, oh yeah, like this is, my vibe. It's just like crystals everywhere and like natural elements and plants and triangles. And I'm like, oh yeah, this conversation is going to be a bomb. So it's a great place to I just feel like at home here because it's like the same kind of aesthetic and like sacred container that I really like to create for myself.
Love it.
The desert has its like magic. It really does.
I always say that. The desert magic is a unique brand of medicine. I've never felt this anywhere else I've ever lived. It's different than like the medicine of the ocean or the medicine of the forest. It's completely vibrationally unique.
Yeah, and I think what makes us desert babes like resilient. We have like a lot of resilience because we can have like extreme cold to like extreme heat.
Yes.
So we're like chameleon, shape-shifting.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, yeah, I driving out to Tucson for the Gem Fair. I'm doing the trek alone there, and then coming back, I'll have my friend Krista Ryerson of Chalice Grove with me, and I was like, I want to like break up this ride and I want to also make it like super fun. And I was like, oh my God, this is a no-brainer. So I was like, Zoey, yo, girl, I'm coming this way. And I mean, I know there's not a lot of, people like healers like this that at least are on the big like social media awareness as it is in like California. It's like so oversaturated. So how do you feel like with being here and understanding that there isn't as much of, I don't want to say like a variety, but there isn't as much of that, opportunity or of like spiritual entrepreneurs, like how do you allow yourself to connect to the bigger communities that are kind of maybe as a Californian, like I take for granted, like I still feel like I live like 2.5 hours away from like everyone, but we're like really landlocked here.
Yeah. I actually moved out to Arizona. I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from New York. And then I went to college in California. I went to the Claremont Consortium schools in Claremont, Pomona, Pitzer. And I came out to Arizona to go to the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts after I graduated with my bachelor's because I was like, I studied gender and Asian culture. And I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do with that? So I came out here to study healing because that's what I was really passionate about. And oddly enough, I found a community of people who had all sort of flocked here to study there as well. But then also there were people who had just sort of built this community and were already aware of it. So I would say in Phoenix, where I am, I actually feel very much at home. But when it comes to connecting in with the world of healers, like at large or the macro, I actually do feel really left out. I feel like super, like, I don't want to say I have FOMO, but like.
No, I get it. I get it.
I kind of do in a way because I feel like there's so much sisterhood out in California, and having been there and lived there, I remember the feeling of it. Like I remember the connections, and I just wasn't at this point in my career to have really infiltrated it or like enjoyed it. And so now I actually don't feel like I have as many peers here in Phoenix, but I definitely do have a role here because I actually ended up teaching at Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. So I would say in a lot of ways, I business coach other healers out here. I like to connect healers. I am helping to raise healers. So tons of my clients come to me because they're like, I want to be like you. How do I do that? And I'm like, girl, I can teach you. That's easy. So I feel like I create a community, and I'm kind of, I don't want to say like I'm like a leader in it, but I do sometimes feel like I have a leadership role in it. But when it comes to like my peers, I do feel a little bit far away.
Yeah,
a
because
little left out.
there's no accident why we're all here, and I like to tell people like there's no accident like where you are in the path.
Correct.
And I get people messaging me all the time like, hey, I live in the middle of nowhere, and like it's really hard to connect with people, or it's like I said, we're so oversaturated in California, and then there's so many parts of at least the US that are kind of like, I don't even want to say neglected, but it's just like, hey, over here.
They're like devoid of this energy. They just don't have any of this thing. And I hear that a lot. I have clients, or back when I was teaching, I had students who were like, I live in the middle of Iowa, and like I want to be a Reiki practitioner, but no, everyone looks at me like I got 3 heads, and it's like, really? Like, I understand that exists, but I've never been so far removed from it that I can't actually relate to that experience, which I think is really interesting. I've never experienced it. I have a fearlessness where I'm just like, who gives a shit? Not basic. It means I'm not unconscious. So that's okay. And
you're not blending into the norm. It's like that permission to allow yourself to be you.
Yes. And you're being a light. When you're you're being a light. So if in Iowa there's not enough of that, guess what? You are the catalyst. You are the light, so other people can find themselves and understand themselves. So if anything, I think it's a blessing. I think it's maybe easier to be someone that stands out than it is to be someone in California where it's like everyone and their mom is like doing Reiki now. Literally everyone and their mom does Reiki now.
There's also a good thing about that too, is that we can get out of the scarcity mindset of like, if it, like in California, for instance, if there's such an oversaturation of like, oh, well, everyone else is doing it. Yes and no. Like, you may see it in your perception that everyone around you is doing it because that is your world. But when you think about the grander picture of like how many people actually need the healing and how many people actually need the medicine, like more on the team, please, And I think that's part of how we have to really shift our mindset to as a healer. It's like, oh, well, shit, well, someone else is already doing this. Yes, but no one's doing it like you.
Yes. I can't even tell you how much I agree with that. And of course, like the ego wants you to think, right? Like, oh, when I was making my decks, I was like, there were moments when I said, why am I doing this? Like, there's other ones, or there's ones that are better. Like, I waited too long. This isn't good enough. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, we're all bringing our own unique brand of medicine. And you're right, in the grand scheme of almost 8 billion people now, which, by the way, is too many people, we need as many healers as we can get. Everybody needs to be able to have access to this medicine and this holding.
Because this is a new paradigm we're also embarking in. And so the more conscious people that we have, and the more conscious people that are able to unapologetically share who they are through vulnerability, through sharing experience, that gives other people permission to, 1, feel like they aren't alone. And 2, it creates that ripple effect, because as we continue to step deeper into the Aquarian age and we step deeper into this new paradigm, people who may be unconscious are going to be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yes.
And I think people who may be in these areas and may not be overpopulated with spiritual teachers, like their medicine is needed probably even more, because there's a bigger radius that they have of people that they can reach in that area. And they have a higher opportunity, or just an opportunity to, because it's all your own mindset, but you have that opportunity to even reach more people if you look at, just in the area in terms of like population and percentage.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the numbers alone support your path as a healer. I have actually been referring to this very similar, you're calling it a paradigm shift, and I keep calling it an awakening. It's something that I feel like, because I've had so many clients, and if I may get political for a second.
No, I love politics. Let's fucking do it.
Ever since our current president was
45,
elected,
I like to call,
I have had people just beside themselves being like, when will this be over? When will it end? When will he go away? What's going to fix this? And even though when he was elected, I was beside myself, I'll be honest, like I felt suicidal that night, because I was like, I don't want to live in a world where people wanted this to happen. Like I was really impacted by that. But as a desert dweller, I was very resilient. I bounced back pretty quickly and knew I had to be there to support others. And it just lasted a second. I was like, ugh. But I know that the face of evil has to rise so that people are awakened to their power, to their light. And I keep calling it like a light army. I wish I had another term for it, but that's because I don't think we're combative or like militant. I just think we're coming forward in droves and numbers, and people there's something's clicking in them where they're like, I think I want to be more spiritual, which turns into, I think I want to be more conscious.
I think I want to be who I actually am.
Yes.
At the core.
Yes, exactly. And it's, I keep tying this back. For me, there's like a recurring message that keeps downloading. I read Eckhart Tolle, obviously, A New Earth, and then 2012 happened. And there was all this like, do you remember that? Like everyone was like 2012. Like,
oh yeah, I mean 2012. I was fucking struck by lightning, and like
yeah,
that was like the gnarliest year of my existence so far.
I feel like we all transformed, like something shed and something changed. I really feel like the new earth began in 2012, and I think it's being I think there's an energy that's increasing, that's growing, that is expanding, and people are responding to the call, like the draft, so to speak, for the light army has been put out, and we're all hearing that call, and we're heeding it. But I think people like you and I are just here to make other people feel comfortable responding to that call.
Because the way I see it, it's like waves of teachers. So I feel like a lot of people who had the awakening and the awareness that happened in 2012, it's like a 7-year cycle now. We're in 2019. So 7's a very powerful year in terms of consciousness, and, preferences and everything change every 7 years. And so I know for me and a lot of the people in my inner circle, the past few years have been feeling really challenging. Yeah. And the biggest thing is to also understand that like we've been kind of clearing out the debris of the old paradigm of the Piscean age. And so us who have been doing the work for at least the past 7 years or so, like we're helping set precedent for the people who may just be awakening right now. And we've had to go through a lot of the shit and a lot of the trauma and the pain and all of that to clear out for our brothers and sisters and be like, hey, there's a faster way to do it. I know for me, that's why I've geared out of doing trauma work, because otherwise I'm just continuously reopening my own wound. And it's like, okay, well, if I get to decide my reality and how I get to experience my reality, if I get to say right here, right now that ancestral karma is cleared, if I get to say here, right now, there isn't any more of that thing, right? Like I get to choose, because the world that I am seeing is based off of my decision or my mindset or my beliefs.
Your perceptions.
The perception.
Yes. I tell people that all the time. I had a client just today actually who was just so afraid to face her wounds and go through the healing. And I kept telling her, like, this is the hard part right here. Just acknowledging it, moving away from the denial of it and the rejection of it, just moving into awareness around it. That's the most important part.
There's no shaming, and I think we grew up in a society of shame and blame, like as kids. Either if like we were always like super gifted because we were always connected spiritually, because we are that bridge between the old and new paradigms. So it's like we were kind of already brought on this earth at the end of the old millennia, because it's like we are like the star seeds that really came in to implement and to plant what the future looks like. So media and the propaganda of media is trying to diminish the power of millennials specifically.
Yes.
Because they're afraid of us because we are so powerful and like our DNA and everything is shifted. And even the kids post 2012, like they are completely different creatures.
Yes. I actually am a huge fan of Gen Z. I'm a little jealous of Gen Z. I feel like they are so on fire.
They've been activists since they were born, because they were all born like after 9/11. Like our generation, we were in puberty during 9/11. These kids, all they've seen, us too, I mean, but mostly all these kids, all they've seen is war and perish and all this shit. And it's like, no, there's something more. And that's why I think there's so much more expression of who they are. Like these 13-year-olds, like they've got like great fucking style.
Oh yeah. They're like, I love those memes that are like, you have to go through your awkward phase just like I did. It's like, no, 13-year-olds look like Kylie Jenner now, and that's all right. Like, I'm like, they can do what they want to do. But I honestly, like, I think living in a world where they did not have an adolescence without technology.
I say this all the time.
Like, I think there's something about that made them grow up very quickly. And so there's sometimes we're looking at them like, you're growing up too fast, and other times it's like, no, you're right on schedule. Like, you're growing up in the world you were born into. You're doing it right. You're going to be okay
at that time.
Exactly. I have so much respect for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because my dad's one of 8, so I have 14 cousins on my dad's side, and I'm number 4.
Wow.
So like the one who's 20 years old, like he's like my best friend, and he's super passionate about politics. Like shit, I wasn't even like, yes, I was interested in it, but like he's really active, you know, and things like that. Like they understand that they came here to make change and to disrupt the status quo, which is why I love like the Sacred Disruptors, is because we came here to really disrupt the status quo and to shed light onto the things and the systems that actually aren't working anymore.
Yes.
And I think that's the role of 45, is to just really like bring a magnifying glass on what's wrong.
Yes.
And then here we come in as spiritual leaders and being like, okay, so let's, instead of masking the problem or easing the symptoms, let's actually find the solution.
100%. At first I was like, there's no way he's going to make it 4 years. And now I'm like, I'm kind of glad, because if anything, I feel like he's just demonstrated that he's an idiot. Like I'm not, before I was afraid. I was afraid of him because I was like, what's he going to do? But I'm not afraid of him anymore. I look at him like a petulant child, and I'm like, go ahead, throw your temper tantrums.
I look at him as his inner child just so fucking hurting. And like, you can't be an empath. Like you can't be doing this work and not recognize that like, yo, he's got straight up core wounds from his subconscious, his childhood. He lacked love. You know, he didn't have the nurturing that he needed.
100%.
And so he's just calling out for love. And it's interesting because on Monday, like I've been all on the road this week. On Monday, I was in LA for Marianne Williamson's presidential.
I was just going to talk about her.
Yeah, I was in LA for Marianne's presidential announcement because one of my sisters, her team was responsible for the live stream.
Wow.
So I was supporting my friend Alice, like making sure she was good, you know? So I was pretty much like Alice's energetic assistant.
Yes.
Like I wore my white and I like gave her crystals and water and like, it's like frankincense. Like I did what I could to support her. Cause I mean, that's a huge, it's a huge thing for my friend. Like, are you kidding me? Like it's not every day you're asked to like do a fucking presidential nomination. So I went there. And it was so fascinating because today is Friday. 5 days later, today was the first day I found anything online talking about her presidential bid.
Yep.
5 days later, and CNN goes on, and she fucking annihilated them. You know, Amazing. She was just talking about how, like, we need to start shifting the consciousness and understanding that, like, there's just a lot of healing that needs to happen. Yes. And I so resonate with that. And what's so funny, I was thinking yesterday too, I was like, well, why hasn't anyone caught her, you know, like caught her in terms of like bringing her on these media outlets? Her vibration is so fucking high, and there's so much density in the media that it can't
contain her.
It. So what's great is that it's an opportunity for people like us who are constantly doing the work to continue to spread the message of what she's talking about, because again, it's part of the new paradigm of what's happening. And we have to, as we continue to be leaders and recognize each other as leaders and understand that there's no competition, like each of us has a specific role to play.
100%.
It's like us leaders need to come together to support others in their brilliance, you know? And that's what she said. New paradigm leadership is about creating the container for the brilliance of others.
Yes.
You know? And so for me, like I said, I've been active in politics, and I was I volunteered for Bernie Sanders 4 years ago, and going to Marianne, I was like, oh shit, yeah, you know, and she was like the first spiritual teacher that really like
resonated with you. Yeah,
well, I was on my fucking well, Deepak Chopra was my first, but the one I actually met, like I met her in 2012, right after 2012. Yeah. And I was like, I just got struck by lightning, and I blah 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 blah, and just like fucking going off as a 23-year-old. And she's like, stop, you're gonna be fine, like return to love. And then I walked out and I saw that owl, like just like showing me, all right, here we go. And then I felt like my journey really kicked off. So a part of me feels like I want to support someone who really helped me, because if she could help me, like I know she can help
the collective.
Because I am part of the collective, like, you know what I mean? So to me, to be able to be there and to see her, and the first woman I can actually get behind as president.
Yes, that was a super big disappointment. Yeah. But I actually remember the day after 45 was elected, Marianne put out a broadcast, I'm sure you remember this, where she was like, we need to pray for him. We need, like, he's our leader now, and we have to pray for him, and we have to send him love, and you may not support him, but here he is.
That's the test too. That's why he's here. It's like, are you going to continue to shame a brother? Are you going to continue? What are you going to do? Or are you going to see them as a wounded? It doesn't matter who it is. Are you going to see them as wounded? And like, because they're still all, we're all interconnected. So if we're constantly going with the bigotry or the shaming or the attacks, then we're not actually finding the solutions again.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I remember in that moment just being like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, I can hold the space for him. I can hold the space for all of us. Like, I'm not afraid anymore. Because like I said, that the night it happened, I wasn't actually suicidal, but I was just like, oh man, I can't live in this world. Like, I can't live in this world where people are like this. And I remember just breaking down. And she's the one that made it okay for me, where I was like, oh, you're right. Okay, thank you.
I just remember the day after he got inaugurated, like the day after he got inaugurated was the Women's March, you know?
Yes.
And that way, like, the sun was out, the energy was great. The next fucking day, it was torrential downpour rain. Just like raining. And I was like, holy shit, this is purification right now. So I know for you, like, you're very connected to understanding how spirit speaks to us.
Yes.
So how are some of the ways that you see the elements really reaffirming or reassuring that like everything's gonna be okay?
You know, I notice it in the natural world, but I mostly notice it in people. I feel like we all have our own medicine. We all have our own thing that we're like really drawn to. For me, I am very connected into people. I love and respect the natural world, but I see it in the faces of kindness. I see it in the faces of the awakened and the awakening. I feel like everything's going to be okay because of the people in the world that inspire me and bring me hope and peace in my heart. And I actually feel like in a lot of ways, the earth and the elements are kind of rebelling against us because of the way that we treat it. I think
it's the Sophia energy. It's the divine feminine, and she's being like our mother, and she's like giving us kind of like a
little spank on the booty. Yeah, and she's like, "Hey guys, can you not?" And just in the way that your own mother, you know, may say to you, like, "Hey, don't speak to me that way," or like, "Hey, don't treat me that way," because my mom certainly said that to me a few times. I feel like Mother Earth is rebelling against us a little bit, and she's trying to show us what we need to know to help her, to heal her, to love her. And so I know that
it's like respect.
Yeah, absolutely. She's trying to teach us respect. And I think I understand that there are people who are warriors on behalf of the earth, and I like respect them, and I'm their ally. I am the person who's trying to communicate to others that that's happening. So I'm talking to the people.
Bring the awareness.
Exactly. I'm trying to spread the awareness that that's happening. And so when people come to me and they're like, you know, I want to do something spiritual. What's my brand of medicine? I have a lot of different camps that people fall in, but one of them is warriors for the earth, like people who are standing up for Mother Earth and who are doing plant-based medicine and doing so sustainably, who are connected to the plight of animals, the plight of, you know, the planet. There's those individuals, and I feel like I am trying to help them awaken to their power and their passion for that. So that's where I kind of find that my focus is. But I definitely do notice that Mother Nature is
she's fucking pissed.
She's speaking to us. She's definitely speaking to us, and I think there's been like interesting studies recently. Like there was a study that trees. Did you hear this? That trees actually they're conscious. Have you heard this? So there's a study done, and I wish I had this information on me, but that trees have consciousness and that they actually like to touch, that they communicate, that they have feelings and emotions. And I was just like, yeah, no shit. Like, what do you mean? I don't think that's something we've all known forever. I think that's something that Indigenous peoples and Native peoples have known for all eternity. But cool, glad that we're just catching up to that. And I really believe that with that awareness, with that consciousness, we're able to start listening more carefully and more closely. But I try to communicate this to others, but two, I try to act as an example, as you see with my metal straw and my...
Oh, don't even get me started. Like, people like give me so much shit because I walk around with my mason jar, like my 32-ounce mason jar, and they're like, is there moonshine in that? Like, if I had like a fucking $1 for every time I heard that, like, I would be sad.
You're gonna be a billionaire.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm just, you know, and I have like my own cup. And even when I go to the farmer's market now, like, I have like my own reusable like produce bags.
Yes.
And instead of getting berries, because they like to put the berries in like a plastic bag so that they don't fall, I bring like a massive like BPA-free Tupperware.
Yes.
So I'm just like, fucking just put it in there. Don't worry about it. Like, don't waste yours. Like, and I bring my like little red bag that carries all my oranges with me every week, you know? Like, that's something that I'm seeing, because I like... it breaks my heart when I live by a national park and there's just so much fucking trash.
Yep.
I mean, granted, with this government shutdown,
Of course.
but like Joshua Tree National Park got so destroyed. Like the damages that were done, like it's going to take at least 300 years to repair the trees that people were just like so unconscious of just like knocking down and graffiti. It was just like, it was fucking horrible. And I could feel the energy of that. You know, I lived 10 minutes from the national park and I could just feel its morning, and it was too much for me to go in. So I just would like visualize just like the love in there.
Yes.
Because it's just, you know, it's just that lack of awareness that people had. And so I think, like, again, going back to what we were talking about when we first started, like going back to like the middle America, like if anything, that is the area where the medicine is like most needed. Because that's where there's the lower levels of consciousness than there are like in New York or California, more specifically California, because the West deals a lot with that energy. So, I just want to say, whoever's listening, if you're living in the Midwest or if you're living in the South or, you know, center of America, know that your medicine is needed like extremely.
Shine, show up, because
there's
you're needed.
no playing small. Like those are the people that need it. Like I posted, speaking of Marianne Williamson, I posted today on my Facebook, which I like never do because it's like, I'm not active on there and it's all family members, you know? And I posted like, the CNN interview of Marianne Williamson today. And I was like, welcome to the new paradigm of politics. My cousin who lives in Ohio is just starting to go all the almighty president that we have right now.
Right.
And I was like, bigotry and hate is not going to be the answer. Stop watching Fox News. Yeah. And he was like, well, stop watching CNN and stuff. I was like, don't worry, because I don't watch those shows.
Yeah, exactly. That's not what I'm consuming, so don't worry about it.
That's not what I'm doing. But it's like, those are the people that are like, they're acting out that way because there's something that's being triggered within them with the way that the world is right now, that it feels comfortable because it's known.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
They're very afraid. There's a lot of fear. And that was one of the things I noticed a lot. And it's so interesting this conversation turned so political, but my biggest fear was for my brothers and sisters who were of different races and religions. That was my biggest fear, was like, they're no longer safe.
It's like two step backwards.
Exactly. Because and people would always be like, that's not true. He doesn't tell them to go out and hurt people. I'm like, yeah, no shit. But he doesn't not tell them. He doesn't discourage it. He doesn't. And when it does happen, you know, he says, there's blame on both sides, the Nazis and the non-Nazis. Like, this is crazy. That was my biggest fear, is who's going to protect them? Who's going to like, and we see, you know, there's Muslim women with their heads covered who are being punched in the face on buses. Like,
yeah, that too in itself is ignorance, and that's due through lack of education too. So I think to me, part of how I can start to really show up and step up is to hold conversations like this on the podcast, especially because in the spiritual world, they're like, oh, I don't get involved in politics. And it's like, well, then you're part of the fucking problem.
Well, then you have enough privilege not to be like, every person I know who is extremely highly political is political because the personal is political. They don't have a choice about being political because either they're trans or they're black or they're gay or they're whatever. And they don't have a space and a room to experience the privilege of not having to worry about that kind of thing. So as a person who holds a position of, you know, having a platform or speaking to people and speaking to their hearts and their souls, because that's what we do. We speak to their hearts and their souls, and that's where fear doesn't get to live. Fear doesn't actually live in our hearts and its souls. On our souls, it lives in our egos, and our egos are kind of this like shell around our hearts and our souls that we have to break through.
Which is also can be stuck inside the auric field. Like that's the holes that can, because your auric field is that light body, and if you have those traumas or that pain, there's like Swiss cheese in your auric field. So that's where the fear resides. Like that's like the places that it can metastasize, is in that like absence of light,
in the voids. Absolutely. And that's, you know, that's exactly what I was coming to, is the all that anger, all that violence that I was so afraid of occurring, is people being afraid, which, you know, it's hard to be compassionate toward the aggressor. But we have to get to that level where we go, okay, you're an aggressor because you're afraid. Well, how can we touch your heart and help you not be afraid? How can we help you see that this person's not your enemy?
And what did you need? Like, what do you feel like you're lacking right now? And that sometimes that takes them to have to do deep reflection because they're so caught up in the story. They're so caught up in the ego. So this is also an invitation for whoever is listening. the more you do the work on yourself, the less you'll also see that.
Yes.
Because we are seeing that, because it's an invitation for us to really address and to be like, okay, well, this is coming up as my reality. If I want to get rid of it and if I want to transmute it,
Yes.
I have to get radically honest that in
Yes.
the areas of my life where that's still going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know you created your decks, and you
Yeah.
had these 2 decks that you created. So something that I really love about your deck, going back to privilege and, you know, talking about people of different races and stuff, is that you were very conscious of like making sure you had all races and
Focused on inclusivity.
Yeah, inclusivity. So, and that's been something that's been really interesting too, because like I have this course, Taxes for Creatives, and
Which I'm so excited for.
thanks. Yeah, my friend who's like doing it with me, Evelyn, she was like, we are not using the term exclusive. We are not using the term bonus, you know, like getting rid of those like salesy-esque terms
Yes.
of like exclusivity. Like, no, we're inclusive. Like the intention is to include everyone so that they can be in that abundance and to like really respect their money. It's not like we're better than you. It's the inclusive things. And so the thing that I want to go with this is like to really heal the racism and the bigotry we're seeing in the world. It takes us on an individual level to start taking action to include those who may be marginalized.
Right. I just wanted to create, I know I'm one person, and also like I'm a white girl. So like there's only so much that I know. Right. Like, and I only want to be a megaphone. I don't want to talk over anybody. So what I can say is that as a white person, I did my best and I focused on inclusivity. But I think the thing that I walked away from this process with, which got me really excited, was I can do better. Because with this project, I was limited because I didn't have the same sorts of resources with my very first product, my very first deck. And I still think it's beautiful and I'm proud of it. But I see that I could have more differences in body shape. I see that I could have more differences, like even more tonality. But my goal was to normalize the experience of seeing different shades of skin in an oracle deck. Because I have a drawer right in front of me of 10 different decks that, with the exception of 4 or 5 cards, maybe in each one, but certainly not in some of them, there's no difference in skin tones. There's all white people. Angels are always white, like, and so for this deck, I wanted the imagery of the angels that were communicating the messages to be reflected in the faces of real women, to be reflected in the faces of real people. And that was guided me. And it made me realize, okay, great. This is, I did the best I could with the resources I had. Next time I'm going to go harder. I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to do better. Because obviously it makes me feel good to do this, but that's not the point. The point is to make other people feel like they're included. And also, to the whitewashed world, I want to normalize the vision of these different skin tones in our divination tools, because there's just not enough of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's been really interesting too, because I've just been studying a lot more about like wellness beyond whiteness, and and just really being able to embrace like and honor people of all shapes and sizes. And what's so funny is that I think back to like 16-year-old Sabrina, who was like living in Italy that summer, and seeing like people of all different body types and everything, like embracing who they are.
Yes.
So I think it's been like a slower process for America to really wake up to, even though we truly are the melting pot of the world. Like we have all these different ethnicities and races. And so I think also what's happening right now in the world is that it's fueling the oppressed to really like break free from the shackles and break free from the stereotypes that they have been conditioned to believe is normal.
Right.
It's been normalized through generations.
And it's been systematized. I mean, there's systems that the world has put in place, that society has put in place to continue to keep them marginalized. And I think we're in a generation, and we're in an age and a place where people are teaching us and helping us to realize how we can be better allies. Because that's the thing I've
it's
really
not even
been
about being
focused
an
on.
ally, because like that's what they were saying at this conference I went to. It's not even saying it's an ally, because then it's still like you're still outside.
Right.
So it's like, how can we just be inclusive together?
Right. I think I still resonate with the term ally, because I respect and honor that my experience is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll never feel what certain people feel. And I think I have to just acknowledge, by saying an ally, what I'm saying is I recognize my privilege, and all I want to do is use it in a way that makes you comfortable. I want to ask questions. I want to be supportive. And there's no way that I can't do that. So for instance, I have a friend who came to me with concern about my business name, Merhipsy, because it includes the word gypsy in it. It's mermaid, hippie, gypsy. And I had to look at my own self and be like, well, shit. Like I had an awareness that it was like a term, a racial term, but I had never really encountered anybody that recognized it that way or like had an issue with it. Never. Like even Romani people were like, I don't care. But someone came to me and said, I have an issue with this. And so I have not actually used that word. I took it out of my bios. I took it out of everything. Now, if people ask me, I'll tell them what Merhipsy means. But I also say, even though I identify as this, and even though it means something to me, it's a portmanteau, a word that I created. I refrain from expanding on the definition of it now because it's hurtful to people, and I have to acknowledge that. So
and that to get to that level, it's like totally like getting out of the ego.
Yeah.
And that is a way for us to understand that's just the importance of having conversation.
Right.
And this is how we learn. We learn through the experience, and we learn through the experience of sitting across or hearing from someone who may be feeling oppressed and like really connecting to their heart on like what they feel and having that be like the shift or like the aha of like, oh shit, like again, going back to that privilege or that unawareness or the ignorance. It is a form of ignorance, and we have to admit that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
So we can't be shaming ourselves for it. But now when you know better,
you have to do better. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I think there was a point at which I could ignore it and like I was like, well, no one's upset about it. Like, I guess that's okay. And then the day came when someone said, I have a problem, and I could no longer ignore it. And this was actually a friend of mine, and she was so cool and so kind about it. She was like, I think you have to acknowledge the use and to discontinue the use. And I was like, man, fuck. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And my ego did react. It was like, but. And then I just was like, you know what? I can't do that. I can't let my ego take control of this, because if it's hurting someone, it's hurting everyone. Mm-hmm. If it hurts someone, then it's putting a poison into the collective, and I don't want to be responsible for that. Mm-hmm. So I had to make a change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, even like there's so many other words like tribe and stuff, and a lot of that, that's been like a huge hot topic as well.
Yeah.
So I think like for me, I'm working on being more conscious of saying community. Sometimes tribe still slips up, and it can be challenging for me because I grew up on like in Palm Springs where there was all the tribes and all the tribe members and stuff, but it's definitely like a willingness to do better, and it's a willingness to, and don't beat yourself up if you slip, it's like, if things like that have been ingrained for a while, and if a slip up happens and you're working on being better, like that's okay.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's interesting because now even as like we continue to do the work and then we see our parents or they may be kind of reacting to a certain way or they're still stuck in that. It's like, know that the only thing you can do is to be by example.
Exactly. I had a moment with a loved one where they, what's called clocking, when you clock a trans person, where they had said, if I didn't know that wasn't a girl, I would totally think that was a girl. And I was like, just don't say anything. Like, don't even clock them inside your own brain. Just
they don't
allow
understand
that person
the
to
idea
exist.
how there's no more like gender is like dying out.
Yeah.
Like it's not, like the fact that there's more gender neutral bathrooms kind of coming up
or just gender fluid expression. Like that's one of the things I love about Gen Z. Like they're gender fluid. They are queer positive. They are inclusive. They like that's one of my favorite things about them is like they're just accepting of one another. Like I have a friend
and they don't judge either with body types.
Right. They're they are more body positive than our generation, which was like all super skinny, Abercrombie, everything.
Oh
like,
my God.
Like
every color of polo.
Oh,
from
just or Hollister. Like even thinking back to that is just like triggering the fuck out of me. Like I can't even like think about all the popped collars, the layers of popped collars that I wore.
Popped collars.
Oh man,
I know I had all the colors. But the generations to come are constantly teaching us because
Totally.
they haven't been jaded by the society. They haven't been jaded by the media. They haven't been jaded by, the density of life in this polarity planet.
Yeah. They have their own, I definitely see that they have their own battles, their own traumas, their own things to overcome, but I think they don't have the same types of issues that we had. And so I think we look at them with this sort of like reverence. But at the same time, I do think that some baby boomers look at millennials with like a little bit of reverence, because I know for a fact that our parents loved us more or expressed more love to us than their parents expressed to them. And I think that they were soft with us. They did their best to be soft with us. They weren't all soft, but they did their best to be soft with us, and they never got that. And I think that they look at us with some sort of like desire or envy, which is ironic because they're the ones that gave it to us. They're the ones that gave it to us, and yet I think they still have like an envy or a desire for it themselves. Like they wish that they had received that same type of nurturing. And I get that because it's valuable to me. It means everything to me.
And that's why I just want millennials to be super financially successful so that we can like give back to our parents.
Yeah.
Because I feel like our generation, like our parents really sacrificed a lot.
Oh yeah. And I think there's a lot of like tension I find between boomers and millennials, because it's like there's, you see all these memes where it's like, why can't you just buy a house? I bought a house. It's like, well, prices are different, everything's different. You didn't have $30,000 in student loans or whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing that I always come back to with everything that I do, whether it's with clients or my own life, every person in the world does the best they can with what they have. Mm-hmm. And if you can acknowledge that someone is judging you or hurting you or transgressing against you from a place of literally not being able to do better in that moment, it sort of washes it all away. So I don't have anger toward boomers. Like, do I think they kind of jacked themselves up? Yeah, but do I think they jacked themselves up because no one taught them to do any better? No one taught them to be any different?
You're saying that right now, because then there's even things as us as millennials we weren't really taught. So
right.
Again, it goes back. It's like, fuck, like we had to continue to understand that like they did their best.
Yeah.
And there's still things for us that we need to continue to still learn.
Yeah.
Like that's why Evelyn and I created this Taxes for Creatives class, because we weren't taught how to really properly file taxes or
right.
like things like that, because
or like balance a checkbook.
Yeah, like these things that that we were never really sat down to talk about, and then it's like, well, let me just try to fucking figure this out. But again, like with this Aquarian age, it's about community and cooperation and how can we support each other, because if we can help empower each other financially, then imagine what our money can do in the world.
And the 90s were like a time of affluence, but like I feel like it was competitive affluence. It was like, even if you look at movies, it was all about like who's at the top of the CEO pile on Wall Street, and everyone's in their suits. It's like I just feel like the 90s were so full of consumerism and affluence and competition.
And then the bubble burst. Exactly.
And then the bubble burst, and we are now coming into a state of how do we become financially free so we can lift others up? How do we become financially free? And my whole thing with my business is I have this like pain, and this is totally almost off topic, but I have this pain because I'm alone in what I do. And my whole entire career, I've been like, partner with me to like every cool person I ever meet. And they don't, because they got their own thing going on, which is fine. But I know that Spirit's like, come on, you're meant to do this on your own. You have your own work, your own path. But I feel like I'm just so drawn toward collaboration.
You collaborated in this deck.
Yes, exactly. And I'm, currently I'm designing a online sound healing course with a friend of mine. Now I'm in a space where I'm in a total flow of collaboration. But up until this point, it was like very much me on my own. Yeah, but all I wanted was to work with someone else, because I actually don't experience competition with people. Like I have moments of humanness where I feel inadequate, but I don't look at another person and go, you have something and you shouldn't have it, and I want it more than you should have it. Like that doesn't flow through me. It doesn't resonate with me.
And it doesn't lift the consciousness of it either, because then there's still the resistance, and we want to choose to live in a path of least resistance, and we can be in that space of least resistance when we're supporting each other.
Yes.
Because then we can be in that mindset of abundance.
Exactly. And that's where I'm really feeling like this whole time my soul has just been saying community, collaboration. It hasn't really been about collaborating. It's just been about me wanting to be a part of the collective, because being a thought leader or being a healer or being whatever it is, however we want to identify, you do have to stand on your own. You do have to speak your message, because your message and your medicine individually will speak to certain people in the world.
Through your story. That's why it's important to embrace your
story
and everything that has brought you here. That story doesn't need to define you.
Exactly.
But knowing that there's no accident to what it is you've experienced.
And what it is that's created you. I find that in the journey of this, to going from where I was to where I am, that's the thing that I keep giving to people is like, you can do what I've done. I'm not a person who doesn't want to teach other people how to be healers, or someone who wants to, hold people down so I can rise and be special. It's like, I specifically want people to know they don't have to depend on me. They don't need me to have a connection to the divine, because that's what I do. I'm a channel. I haven't mentioned that yet, but I'm a channel. And I want people to know, like, I don't want them to work with me forever. I want them to work with me until they're ready to listen for themselves.
Until the mission's complete. When the teacher will come when the student is ready.
Exactly. And so when clients graduate out of my work or my experience, I don't bemoan it. And I don't feel like, I don't go, oh, lost income. I'm just like, great. Mm-hmm. They don't need me anymore. Mm-hmm. And because they've found themselves.
More than just that too, there also can be time with our tools.
Yes.
That sometimes we use these certain tools that gets us to where we're going, and then the tools don't really need to
exist anymore.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So there's also no shame of that too, because I know for me, like, I used to be a big student of A Course in Miracles, but now, like, I've moved forward from that because it gave me what I needed. Like, I understand the principles of, like, everything is love or an opportunity for love. Like, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't need to keep going through the 365 days every day, because I did that for 3 years, and it's just that loop.
Yes.
And and that's why like I'm not doing trauma work anymore, and I'm focusing more on spiritual business, because mission complete. Like, I finished the mission of what Spirit led me to do that work.
Exactly.
But I can continue to be by example and lead by example by up leveling to the next step.
100%. I feel like I remember I read a book by Doreen Virtue, and she's a hot topic because of what's been going on with her. But back in the day when she was in alignment with my beliefs, is the best way I could put that. Because this drawer I was talking about, full of oracle cards, 95% her decks, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she was probably the single most influential figure for me growing up of spirituality. Mm-hmm. All of her books, all of her decks, all of her everything. Like, I consumed it, and it felt so familiar to me. I was like, you're not teaching me anything. You're affirming for me that I'm not insane, and all the things that I think are real. So I remember reading a book by her. I believe it's called Divine Guidance, How to Have a Divine Dialogue with Your Angels and Guides. I'm like pretty sure that's it. It's like out of print now, obviously, like all her stuff, but it's been long out of print. There's a part where she says, I stopped doing sessions a long time ago because my job wasn't to connect with people in session. My job was to teach people how to connect for themselves. And when I read that, I was like, I'm going to go through that one day. And I'm going through it right now. Mm-hmm. I've changed the structure of my business. I still take client sessions, but now I am, 1, sharing stuff on the podcast, 2, creating actual divination tools through the cards, and then 3, I'm making courses. I have a course right now about how to read oracle cards. I'm developing a course about how to identify your intuitive type and strengthen it, doing a course on sound healing, all these things. I want to teach people how to do these things for themselves and for others. That
empowers them too.
Exactly.
Or that's not like, because if you're relying on me, if you're relying on you, if you're relying on someone else, except yourself, then you're actually giving away your power.
Exactly. And there always has to be a teacher. Like, you always have to rely on someone else at some point.
So mentorship is critical.
Absolutely.
If you want to really be successful in the world today, all the successful people I know, and I'm also study under or with, they still have mentors.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple. So you need to make sure you invest in yourself.
Yes.
And invest your time and your money and your energy to support someone else who is where you want to be.
Every great coach has a coach. Every great intuitive has an intuitive that they refer to. Everyone has that person. And
because you can't do it by yourself. You can't up level being in the same thing that you're doing.
I had someone approach me a few years ago now when Kyle Gray sort of came on the scene, and they were like, have you heard of Kyle Gray? I was like, yeah. And they said, well, we want to make you our Kyle Gray for our company, our organization. We want you to create a a course in intuition and how to expand it and do a whole thing, and we'll make you the face of it, blah, blah, blah. And I remember being so opposed to that. I was like, no, thank you. Everything in my body was like, I don't want to be a public figure. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be the face of anything. And now I'm glad I didn't take that opportunity for sure, because I needed to do my own thing. But now I'm in a place where it's like, that's actually what I would love to do, is just focus on education and creating programs, creating opportunities. And I've come to a place where I understand that being a public figure or being a thought leader is not a bad thing. Because I'm really uncomfortable with like the idea of a guru or like group think, like going to conventions where everyone's just dying to watch like Tony Robbins or something. Like I get a little uncomfortable just because I understand that they need that, but I just wish they knew they already had it.
Teachers are just there to remind you what you forgot.
Exactly. But for some reason, I've always had like a little bit of resistance around that. And it's because I think I was really unable to acknowledge that was where I was headed. That's where I was going. And so my discomfort in watching other people do it was my discomfort for myself of becoming it. And so when someone offered me that opportunity, I said, no, thank you, no, thank you. And now, like I said, I'm glad I didn't walk that path specifically, but it is where I'm headed. And and I know I have to embrace that. I have to do that. And I have to enjoy it so that I can be someone who can teach rather than just do. And
you teach what you've experienced.
Yes, exactly.
Because you teach what your clients are the you used to be.
Yes.
Like that's what, like you go through that experience, and that's a former version of you because you have the experience, and then again, like continue to move forward.
Exactly. I also find that the people that I want to teach, some of them are who I used to be, and some of them are someone I've never been. And I think they need to see someone like me exist. And I don't mean for that to sound egotistical at all. What I mean is I have never been disconnected from my intuition because I was never dissuaded from believing in it. Luckily, my parents were both just like, yeah, you're intuitive, you're connected, you're cool, you talk to ghosts, no problem, that seems fine and normal to us. But there are so many people who did not have that experience. And so I want to be an example of what a person looks like who's always been connected to their intuition, who's always been connected to their divinity, what kind of life you can create, what kind of existence you can have, what kind of impact you can impart when you are that type of person. But in order to be that example, I got to actually be that example, right? I got to
walk
actually,
the talk.
Exactly. So right now, I'm focused on being in a state of growth so that I can come into a place where I can be that example and then be an educator and a support to others as they live that. And I've done it on a micro scale in session, and I'm finding that Spirit is guiding me to move into something a little more bigger, like a wider scale now. But I think a lot of us who've been doing this for a few years now are feeling the exact same way.
All of my friends are like stepping out of one-on-one work.
Absolutely. We're a little bit drained. We're a little bit tired.
Yeah, it's been a lot. And like I said, I think we didn't really know the energetic boundaries for a long time. And as you continue to do the work, you become increasingly more sensitive.
Correct.
So, it's really important to have the boundaries to, especially if you are, and this is your profession, having that client boundary,
Correct.
And that takes worthiness.
Yep.
It takes experience of like being drained for so many years, and then you just get tired of your own shit. And you're just like,
and I mean, how many times in session do we tell people if something's not making you happy, stop doing it, right? Like, and I think I've already written this email in my head that I know one day I'm going to send to my clients, which is everything that I've taught you, I'm now doing. Like, this no longer serves me. I'm no longer in alignment with this. It no longer makes me happy to serve on a one-on-one client basis. So it's time for me to practice what I preach, to do exactly what I've encouraged you to do and walked you through for years and years. It's time for me to let this go. Like, I've written that in my head already because I know one day that's coming. I'm going to shift into the role of teacher, the role of creator more full time.
You're already doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know
just more of the embodiment, like the unfolding of the embodiment.
And at first that really scared me. I remember like feeling a little bit of dissonance from client work and being like, oh no. I went through a straight up quarter life crisis. I was like 25 at the time because I started doing this really young. And I had already been in work or in service for like 3 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, I achieved my dream I've always wanted. I already got it. I did it. And it doesn't make me happy. What do I do? And I was so afraid. And then finally one day I shut off that goddamn monkey brain that was trying to make me afraid. That was like, what do I do? I ruined my life. I'm not happy. And what I heard Spirit say very quietly underneath was, you're just going on to the next thing. You're going on to the next phase. And as soon as I acknowledged that, it was time to make the decks. And then I have been so happy. And even doing client work felt good again because I was pursuing this. I was pursuing what I needed to be doing on the side. And now it's all coming together. I've got the podcast where I share live client sessions. I've got the decks where I work with people all the time. It's all coming together. The courses where I teach people how to do it for themselves. So when I'm in client sessions, I'm just like happy as all get out because I'm connecting with the people that I'm here to serve. It all fits better together now. So I know that when we have a resistance to something, it's just Spirit saying, hey, you've outgrown this in this capacity. You've outgrown this in this form. And I learned to stop being afraid of it. And so now whenever that comes up, I'm just like, oh, you're trying to make me be interested in something else. Great. I'm going to listen.
Yeah, the biggest thing I like to say, it's happening for you and not to you.
Yes, 100%.
What's been really interesting too that I've just been seeing is, a lot of that evolution and, practicing what you preach. When I was doing my last launch for Thrive, it was like, stop playing small. And to me, like doing the trauma work was me playing small. I know it's big work,
right?
But business and marketing is kind of like what I feel like I'm really good at in branding.
Yeah. And clearly you have an aptitude for it. I mean, what was the first thing I said when you came in? I was like,
oh my gosh, she's so funny. She was like, oh my God, your website. I was like, who made this? And I scrolled down the bottom and I saw you did it.
And I was really just excited by that and blown away by it because I am extremely similar to you. Visual, branding,
yeah, our branding
business.
Is very aligned.
It's very aligned, and it's my passion. But I haven't really developed or given the time to develop the technical skill for it. So instead, I've found hands. So like for my decks, I collaborated. I was like, change this to this, everything. Like I was a deep part of the artistic process. Same with my website, everything. But I don't have
and your website's so beautiful.
Thank you. It's not my hands doing it, but my hands are really deeply
Okay, so
in
I want to talk about this too because there's also that point in entrepreneurship where building the team.
Yeah.
Because, as we continue to up level, we have to understand that we can't do everything on our own.
Yeah.
So that in itself takes...
Yeah.
It's a huge leap of like the worthiness and like getting out of the comfort zone. And
I think you come through that in every stage. So like, for instance, I tell people the story all the time. I started Merhipsy Healing with literally nothing. I had lost my job, which was divinely orchestrated. I'd been saying I was going to quit for 6 months. I never did. And then one day there was budget cuts and I had to go. So it was like divinely orchestrated. I realized that. I had nothing but a severance package and a dream to make that happen. And I took huge leaps along the way. I paid for photos and a website when I had nothing. I paid for, I remember taking out a space before I had enough clients to pay the rent for that space. And it was like brick cement, like no windows, dank. The landlady was straight up abusive. She just terrified me constantly. And I remember like taking that leap of faith along the way, believing and knowing like this is the work I'm supposed to be doing, so Spirit's going to help me pay the rent on this space. And before I knew it, within 3 months, I was more than profitable. Like I had reached my expenses and then I was profitable and beyond what I had ever expected to be, ever. And then my dream changed and grew.
What do you think allowed that to happen?
My faith, complete 100%. I took those leaps. I took those risks and 100% believed that Spirit would catch me. Did I always feel comfortable enough to do it myself?
Hell no.
No. I mean, I had a friend who came with me to tour that space and she was like, if you don't do this, like you're stupid. I was like, okay, like that's all I need to do here. You're right. Like if I'm just going to let fear keep me from doing this, then I'm stupid. And it was like a 6-month lease. Okay. So I paid, it was like $275 a month for this little room, like looking at that now, I'm just like, what? But there's people who are going through this process who want to become healers, who are so scared to take out that lease on their first little place. They're in that same space. And ever since then, the leaps have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. The expenses have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And I recently, when we're talking about team building, I recently brought on an assistant. And I did that last year. That individual didn't work out. I went through like 2 different people. Finally, I have someone that I'm really stoked on. But that was a process. And I think a lot of people, when they get to that point, they struggle with releasing control. Like you hear that a lot. They're like, you're struggling to let go. For me,
especially when you had so many years of just doing it
by yourself. But for me, it was the opposite. I was like, take it off my plate. Take this. I think I almost gave her like too much. I was like, I want to do nothing but client calls at this point. Can you handle that? Can you run my business for me? And I had to find like a good little balance there. But it is really a huge part of the journey is to take those leaps.
Trust.
And I always tell people, like, money is energy. When you invest money into whatever you're doing, business, whatever, it's going to come back to you. But I find that people invest and then don't follow it up with the investment of faith, the investment of belief, and therefore
they can invest also out of scarcity.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Because what happens? You give someone $3,000 or something, and then you're like, now I'm out $3,000. Okay. And you also gained this, and this perspective. You have to look at what you're gaining. You have to be excited about it. You have to put the energy into it and the energetic investment to know and believe that you're going to receive out of that. And I've had business clients who go through the exact same steps and journey that I went through. And if they've got the faith, it flows. And if they don't, they fall on their face and they want to blame me. And I'm like, listen, you're not in flow because you're not in faith. As soon as you can change your perspective, this is going to shift for you. And it immediately does, and they find that it's true. But I think people just don't want to believe that it can be so easy. Because society doesn't make us...
It's a choice. And it's like, as soon as you choose, like, hey, I want it to be with the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
I choose. And I think even when we first start the business, like, we can get so consumed and, like, not knowing when to shut off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm still like that. Like,
it's a practice.
It's late at night right now while we're recording. You're going to leave and I'm going to keep working. I have emails to write. I have stuff to send to someone who's building my Shopify site. I have client recordings to send out. I mean, I got stuff to do. I'm going to be working all night.
But that's the other thing too. It's like, there's a difference between like doing shit and like being in inspired action and flow.
Yes, exactly. And the truth is I work for myself. So like I goofed off all morning, I goofed off all morning. Then I did client calls and I'm prepared for your visit. Now I'm here and then I'm going to work later. And
yeah, like
I get to decide.
For me, coming to Tucson, it's like I've just been focusing on this launch for the past like few weeks, and then I'm going to Tucson. I'm gonna find the biggest rose quartz piece I could find and like hug it, and then I'm gonna be with one of my girlfriends who's like my soul activating sister, and then we get to drive back, and then we're like brainstorming together to like continue to up level and build our businesses.
Love.
And I'm creating the Taxes for Creatives class, as I'm recording this. So yeah, I mean, it's just that's the blessing that we have to also remember when we have build our own business. Like, you have to remember why you did it, why you started. You wanted that independence, you wanted that freedom.
Exactly.
But we can still get stuck in that old paradigm of, because we saw our parents with it, like overworking and all of that.
Yeah.
And what I've learned through my own experience, like if I don't give myself time to self-care, if I don't give myself time to check out a little bit, like I'm setting myself up for disaster, because I'll be resentful, I'll be pissed, I'll be drained, I'll be exhausted.
You're not really serving people.
Yeah, because you're not at your highest self, And
100%.
So with this last, with the last launch I had for Thrive, like the amount of up leveling I did of just self-care was something I've never done before, right? Because if you have to also make sure your vibration's high to continue to attract more people.
Yes.
If you're not attracting the clients that you want, it's because you are not the solid container to hold that space.
You're not attuned to the vibration of serving. For me, everything is a matter of vibration, and it's about matching the vibration of whatever it is that you want. And I speak that language all the time, and people either hear me or they don't hear me.
And if they don't hear you, it's because they still have work to do.
Right, exactly. And I think that's something I really struggle with in my business, and maybe you experience this too, is like reversing my language so people can understand what I'm saying. And it's really hard because like,
woof.
Part of me is like, okay, I know I need to do that, and the other part of me is like,
I want them to meet me where I'm at.
Well, the other part of me is like, I want to work with the people who know what I'm saying. Like that's the level and type of person that I want to work with. So it's been
that's part of the journey too.
For instance, like I just launched my podcast like almost a month ago today actually. Woo. And my dad listens to it.
Oh my God.
And he's such a lovely being. Like, I'm sure he'll listen to this one too, because he loves me and he listens to whatever I do. And it took us a long time to grow our bond. We were estranged for 10 years, the majority of my teen years. And now we're very close and I love him dearly. But he'll sometimes call me and be like, okay, so what do you mean when you say joy is the needle on the compass of intuition? I don't even know I don't even agree with that. And then I actually enjoy when he says things like that to me, because it makes me reflect like, wow, there's a vast majority of the population who has no fucking clue what I'm talking about. Like, I could literally be saying blurb, 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 and they would be like, yep, same difference to me. So I actually kind of enjoy getting that perspective. But at the same time, I feel like we're humans too, right? Like, we're humans too. And so I'm kind of tired of like having to go back and get down to those fundamentals. I kind of enjoy, and honestly, that's why I raise my price point and I shift my price point continuously. So when I started, I was at a certain price, I doubled that, and recently I doubled that. And I feel super good about it. Yes. And
themselves.
who are in a space to do that work. And I'm more than happy to refer out to people who are at a different price point.
I'm also seeing with that. I'm going to say that because that's something that I've really had to work through as well, as I'm shifting more into spiritual business.
Yeah.
Because so many people, like the amount of like love notes I get every day of like, you've really helped me and you've been one of my teachers and your podcast has been life-changing for me.
Yes.
My podcast is my way of I get to be of service and to offer that free content to help spark people, but we also got bills to pay,
right.
you know? And so I want to work with people who are committed to the path. Like,
yes,
the amount of people who are just like, it seems good, but they're not valuing themselves or feeling that they're worthy of that.
Yes. I'm actually my husband's an entrepreneur as well. He owns 2 software companies and an ads agency, an Instagram and Facebook ads agency. And having an entrepreneur, we both work from home, we can work from wherever we go. Having him as like just even an energy in the house is dope. It's like one of the greatest things I feel blessed by him in all ways, but in that way very particularly. But I find that I am money motivated because I want to do amazing stuff with it. So for instance, in 2017, we donated money to build a school in Kenya. And we went there and visited it in 2018 in the summer. And as soon as we were there, we were like, okay, we got to get enough money to build the high school now. Like, we got to get enough money to build them a water pump. It's like, there was the principal of the school came out.
That's the healing about the money mindset.
Exactly. The principal came out and was like, we have a student who just really needs a wheelchair so his friends don't have to carry him to school because his legs don't work. It's like, yeah, I'm going to buy that kid a wheelchair and his books and his uniform, because in US dollars, it cost me $4 total for all that stuff. Like, I am so focused. That, by the way, that organization, for anyone who's interested, is called Village Impact, and they're life-changing. I'm obsessed with Stu and Amy, who run it. Everyone on their team is amazing. It's been life-changing for me. I've made friends. It's my life. And all I want to do is figure out a way to scale my business so I can give insane amounts of money to that organization and every other one, so I can donate to Marianne Williamson's campaigns. Like, it's like, for me, money is freedom. And so I am money motivated because I want to do stuff with that money. And I've had people that I do certain events with, or things that I have partnered with in the past. And I had a friend who was like, I don't even care if we make money from that one. I just want to like do it. And I'm like, you can't be that way. Like, first of all, you can't eat food if you don't have money, and then you can't serve people if you're dead. So good math.
Or you can't serve people if you're malnourished.
Exactly.
Because your vibration is not
low. Exactly. So I take it to the extreme. Like, you'll die. You'll get chlamydia and you'll die. But I also know that, when you don't value your work is less valuable. If you can say things like, I probably won't make any money doing this, but I just, I want to do it. You're valuing it in some way. You're understanding that it's giving and it's healing and nurturing to others. And I respect and honor and admire that. And also, it's important to understand the value of what you do. And I think in this industry, people kind of want to shame us a lot. And be like,
that's part of the healer complex that we're healing through.
If you're spiritual, then why do you need to make money? Or why would you charge me?
Because that's the thing too. And you have to understand, because, I'm a sociologist, you have to understand the patterns of the past.
Yes.
And you have to learn from that. And a lot of that was the healers in, generations before. The community took care of them.
Yes.
Everything. Like, they were like, people would go to them, but all of their needs were met. We live in a new time where it's like rent in housings like through the fucking roof. And there
was a paradigm as well that spirituality was equated with asceticism, or like not being connected to the material world, or we've seen, you know, like the gurus and the babas, and like even the Beatles, when they were being, you know, spiritual influencers, they were, you know, dressing raggedly and you know, talking about how love is all you need, and you don't need money, you don't need fame, you don't need material stuff. That's where a lot of, you know, boomers actually have their vision of spirituality, is like, you know, when Ram Dass came back from India and was very ascetic. So I think that there's also that mentality that we're outgrowing.
And that's what we also have to work through too, because there can still be that judgment of the boomer generation that's like, all these kids, like millennials, all these kids are just coming up and they're, you know, they just expect everything for free, or like, all these things. It's like, oh yeah, we're actually fucking cleaning up the mess.
Yeah. We actually don't expect anything for free. We understand nothing is free and we're in tons of debt, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. Thanks for your awareness of actually what's happening. Definitely. Yeah. So I think, like, you know, in the next couple years, I think a lot of that conversation is also going to shift, of like that deeper level of respect and awareness. But I can't, you know, and I think that's the other thing that I've had to really work through, is like, for a long time, like my heart was just so open that I gave everything for free.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to help people. And then I trained my audience to expect everything for free.
Yep. And we see that all the time too.
So much.
Like, especially, I find a lot of young people who are spiritual I feel like they're a little bit confused, a little bit lost. I feel like there's certain types of people who like go to festivals, right? Like there's like festival people that go to festivals, and then there's like festy people who just like live in their cars and like love to hoop, and they like they like live in this very like scarcity mentality. And I know these people because they're my friends. I have
Mine
friends
too,
like
that's
this.
why I'm laughing.
Yeah. And it's like, they literally don't know how we do it. Like they look at us and they're like, well, you're just lucky. Like you just this or that, or you work so hard, or they think you're better than me. And it's like, nope. I just chose to focus my energy differently, and I chose to value myself differently. And I see them getting there now. But I was there like in my early 20s, and now they're there in their like early 30s, and they're like literally burned out. They're burned out from living in their car and hooping for 10 years at fucking Firefly or whatever. And it's like, I get it. Like, you did all the frog venom trips that you could handle in your body, and now you're trying to like get back to the space. And I think it's about the fact that they weren't seeing their value from the beginning, that they were like searching for it through this like spiritual thing. They're like, if I just do
Outside
one
of
more
themselves.
frog venom trip, or one more this or that or whatever. I don't do drugs, obviously, you can tell. I've never done frog venom.
Combo.
So like, if I just do this one more time, like, I'll see myself, I'll understand my worth, I'll know myself more deeply. And I don't judge them for being there. Like,
That's
I genuinely, exactly, I hold no judgment. I just feel that sometimes I've actually been judged by them. And so I just want to, I'm always interested in this conversation, because I like to just say, like, we're just getting to the same place in different ways. You know, same thing, like I got married at 25, and I have friends who are in their 30s who are single, and they're like, oh, you're so lucky. And it's like, well, I just did that in my own time, and you're doing it in your own time, and it's going to be completely fine.
That's the biggest challenge of social media. Like, we compare.
Ugh, fucking, yeah.
It's tough, you know, and I think that's where the invitation of individuality comes in again, and that's like through self-love and self-acceptance, and to understand that we're all on different paths, and we all will experience when we need to.
Yeah.
So there's no place of like, well, this person's already here, why the fuck am I not there? Like, that's not your path. And I always say, like, you know, Yogi Bhajan would say patience pays, who brought Kundalini Yoga to the West. And it's like, if things haven't really aligned for you yet, it's because something bigger is happening. So just continue to like do your best, continue to be your best, continue
be where you are.
Yeah, just embrace where you are, because the more that you honor where you are, the faster what you desire will come.
Yes. I always tell people that, like, if you're not present in the moment, if you're constantly projecting into the future of what you desire, you're missing all the things you need to gain and learn and experience in the present moment that's going to get you there. You've got to come into a space of mindfulness.
Because this now is what you used to think about in the past as the future.
Dude, and honestly, and I'm sure you experienced this too, actually. Where I am now is beyond what I had ever expected for myself.
Oh, yeah. Like, it always exceeds expectations. And
always.
It's like, you know, it's always way bigger.
The room I was talking about before, that was the biggest I had ever dreamed of myself. Like, a room with no windows and, you know, charging like penance for what I was doing. I never imagined I would actually create Oracle decks. I never imagined I would create courses. I never imagined I'd be on a
You've been in
podcast or host a
flow and in the
podcast.
alignment.
Yes, I never imagined that could happen for me. And it's that pattern of getting the spark and the idea from spirit, because that's what happens. Spirit tells us, hey, you could have this if you want it. Hey, what about this?
When spirit speaks, you fucking listen.
And then you take those leaps of faith, and they're literally leaps of faith. They're not just leaps, they're leaps of faith. You have to leap with faith and in faith. And when you do, it flows, it comes in, and it happens so naturally and beautifully. But it takes a while to hear the whisper, because I always, whenever I imitate spirit, I whisper, because that's what it's like sometimes. I mean, sometimes
if you're so in your head, you can't hear it. That's
exactly
why meditation and stillness needs to happen.
Exactly. I always tell people the ego yells and screams, but spirit whispers, and the purpose of your life is to hear and abide by the whispers of spirit under the screaming of the ego. Always.
Oh my God, I've been so grateful for this conversation. I want to wrap it
Same.
up with
Yes.
some lightning questions.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your animal totem?
Changes all the time, but a coyote has appeared to me recently.
I've seen so many walking, like, you know, us desert folk. Like,
Yeah.
well, you live like in a city.
But one actually came. I walked outside this apartment, and you were there, right in that area where you came into park. There was a coyote just in the middle of the day 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
In the middle of the day.
I live in the desert, like in the desert.
Yeah.
So like when I'm leaving the dog park every day, like
Yeah.
I'm seeing at least one. They're like, it's like the spirit too. They're very sly.
Yes.
Yes.
I figure that is my totem, since he appeared straight up in my face in the middle of the day, in the middle of the metropolitan area. So I'm like, I think you're trying to tell me something.
Yeah, definitely.
So, coyote.
What would you say was the one book that really changed the trajectory of your life?
Not the answer you're probably expecting. The Giving Tree.
I love that. I have that on my bookshelf.
Yep, The Giving Tree. And it taught me about my mother.
Aww.
Yeah.
I've never had that answer before, but I love that so much.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. What would you say to younger Zoey?
Oh my gosh, I could cry right now.
That's okay.
You're okay. You're loved and you're okay.
Yeah, girl. You're so
I cry when I think about her, because she was so like beautiful and lovely and free. And I'm proud of who she is. Like, I don't cry because I'm sad. I cry because I love her so much. Like, my inner child is such a precious being in my heart. I love her like she's my own child. I love her so much. I love her. That's what I would tell her.
Aww. You're making me all teary.
Yeah.
All right. So where can we find, like, your plethora of offerings and your plethora of givings, the decks? You've got 2 decks. You've got podcast.
So I have 2 brands. I have Merhipsy Healing, and that's at merhipsy.com, MERHIPSY, merhipsy.com. And then Mystic Rebel is where I do my decks, and my podcast is under the Mystic Rebel podcast, and my courses are under Mystic Rebel. So if you visit me at shopmysticrebel.com, soon it's going to be full of really cool stuff. Right now it just has my decks and it looks janky, but it's in the works and it's going to be rad. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Those are my pre-sale pages through like ClickFunnels.
Amazing.
Like, it's not even a real shop yet, but it's about to be, so that's exciting.
Amazing. And if there's something, like, this conversation has had such a wide spectrum and I loved it so much, if there's something that's really on your heart that needs to be shared with someone who's listening, what are you feeling, Miss Channel?
Well, first I want to thank you. I want to just be with you for a moment. And if anything, this conversation, I've like witnessed you, right? Like, we've witnessed each other and we've connected in and out, and I don't think I ever really thought, like, one day you'll be in my house and I'll feed you prosciutto and we'll, like, record a podcast, you know? Like, I don't think that ever really, like, came to my consciousness. But now that it's here, I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful that you were willing to be with me, and that, like, I caught your attention. That's, like, an honor to me, and where you were willing to go with me and take me, and the fact that you drove 6 hours and then sat down with me, like, in a matter of minutes. You're like, okay, I'm here, let's do this. And you're about to go drive more. Like, the fact that you took your time out of your life to come here I'm just so grateful. But beyond your experience with me, I'm grateful for what you do for everybody.
Thank you.
Because it is important, it is valuable, and all the things we've talked about today are about us. You know, it's about our politics and the way that we try to show up as good people, and how we're learning to value ourselves. And because you do what you do, you're making it possible for other people. You're making it possible for me. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you. I'm just letting that soak in.
Yeah.
The Gemini Sun, Virgo Moon in me loves words. So
Words of affirmation is my love language. So
quality time is mine.
Well, here we are spending
And
quality
we're spending
time.
quality time, and you're saying these nice words. That's why I love doing live podcasts. So I was like, oh yeah, we're fucking going on the road.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. Yeah.
To listeners, first of all, thanks for listening all the way to the end of this because we were chatting. But I want you to know that you matter, that you're special and important. And when I say special, I don't mean like your mom said you were special. Like, you're literally special. You're unique. No one in this entire universe is like you. No one that has ever existed is like you. No one that will ever exist is like you. You're the only you in the vastness of all that is. And that is so amazing. And I'm grateful for you, and I love you. And I'm just so excited that you're here and you're willing to share yourself. And I hope you'll share yourself more, because the world needs so much of you. Your smile, your laugh, your humor, your hugs, your kindness, your intelligence, all the things that make you you. The world needs you, and I'm grateful for you, and I love you.
I love that. Well, thank you, Zoey, for having me in your beautiful home.
Thank you for letting me be in your beautiful podcast.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And I look forward to having you on mine. I know we'll have to do a distance recording, but we're going to do it soon. We're going to set that up.
We've already started the vortex, so it's like we'll be there.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening. And I know I can speak for myself, but I can also probably speak for Zoey here. We just really want you to really ingest what we just shared with you throughout this conversation, because there's a lot of awakenings that can happen, and just a deeper sense of awareness so you can go forth and
even
really
if you're triggered,
lead better. Yes, you are here to be a leader of your generation. Yes. And so it just takes that deep dive, that leap of faith, and that knowing and the desire that you are here to move mountains.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Take care.